Hi boys and girls, we're going to be doing practice pages in our Journeys Reader's Notebook. And this is grade 1, volume 2. And let's turn to page 167, where we'll also be doing pages 168 and 169. And these are the first practice pages in our lesson 27 section. So turn to page 167. Okay, I'm going to give you a little mini lesson on comparatives and superlative, adjectives. And this says base word. Okay, so here's the base word cold. When we add an ER to cold, we're going to change it to colder. You see the ER we added? And when we add EST to cold, it changes to coldest. Let's read those three. Cold, colder, coldest. Let's do that with these. Okay, here's the word fast. We add an ER to it, and it says, faster. We add an EST to it, and it says fastest. Okay, let me move this up a little bit so that we can add another row. Okay, let's do this again. Here's our base word hard. This says, when we add an ER to it, harder and hardest. Okay, we'll do another set. This space word says slow. We add an ER. And it says slower. We add EST and it says slowest. So when you have little word parts, they're called suffixes. The suffix ER at the end of a base word, when you add it, it's because you want to compare two people or two animals or two things. So you can say this snail is slow, but this snail is slower. He's the slowest. When you add EST, you're comparing more than two things. Like you're comparing this snail, this one snail, to more than two other snails. He's the slowest of the bunch. Okay, this car's fast, faster, fastest. Okay, hard, harder, hardest. All right, these are like normal words. When the base words do not have an E or they do not end with a Y, they don't end with an E or Y, it's easy. You just add the ER and the EST. But guess what? We're going to be learning about what we need to do in order to add ER, I should say ER and EST to a base word, okay? When that base word has a Y at the end. Now let's look at these. This word says sunny and ends with a Y. Guess what we have to do? Before we add the ER, we have to knock off the Y and change it to an I. You see? This doesn't have a Y anymore. It has an I. So knock off the Y, add an I, and then put ER. So this says sunny, and this is sunnier. Do you see what we did? We knocked off the Y, and we added an I, and then we added the ER. Today is sunny, but yesterday was sunnier. Okay? Oh, look what they did to the base word. They knocked off the Y, and they added the I, and then they added the EST. So this says sunniest. So today was sunny, yesterday was sunnier, but Sunday was the sunniest. When you're comparing Sunday, one day, to more than two or more objects or people or animals, you can add EST. Okay, but that's really not the lesson. The lesson is you have to change that Y to an I. So let's just read some more. Okay, this says funny. It's a base word that ends with a Y. Knock off the Y. Change it to I. And then add ER. So this is funnier. Funny, funnier, funniest. You get the pattern? wonder if we can scoot this up a little bit more. Let's do one more row. Silly. Silly is an adjective that ends with a Y. We're going to knock off the Y before we add an ER to it. This says sillier, and this says silliest. Okay, so these are little families. On our workbook page, we have little families. You tell me which one is not part of the family. Okay, so we have sunny, sunnier, sunniest, funny, funnier, funniest, silly, sillier, silliest. Okay, now we're going to look at our practice page on page 167. 167. Where did it go? There it is. Okay, so we have the base word fancy. It ends with a Y. So this says fancy. This is fancier. This says fanciest. And this says find. Which of these three words does not belong? Find. Okay. Fancier and fanciest, those are the comparative and the superlative forms of fancy. Those are, anyways, you can see that they belong to the same family. Fancy, fancier, fanciest. Oh, look at this base word. It ends with a Y. This says happy. This says happier. This says hand. And this says happiest. So this is the base word happy. Which one does not belong? Happier, hand, or happiest? I hope you said hand. That's not part of the happy family. Okay, silly. It ends with a Y. So its comparative and its superlative are going to knock off the Y and have an I before the ER and the EST, like sillier and silliest. This says still. Silly, sillier, silliest, still. Which one does not belong? Still. I hope you said still. It's not part of their family. Okay, here's another adjective that ends with Y. And it says funny. This word says far, funnier, funniest. So which of these words does not belong with funny? Far, funnier, or funniest? You should have said far. It does not belong. Funny, funnier, and funniest, they're part of the same family. Or at least they have the same base word, funny. Okay, here's the word jolly. Like Santa Claus is jolly. Someone that has a good humor, they're jolly. This word says jollier, jolliest, and this one says joke. So which of these three words, jollier, jolliest, and joke, which of those three does not belong with jolly? You should have said joke. Finally, we have the word messy. Okay, so it's another adjective that ends with Y. Okay, so let's see which one does not belong to its family. Here's messy, miss, messier, messiest. I hope you said that miss does not belong with messy. Okay, all right, so let's move on. So here's the rule. Actually, I want to show you. If a base word ends with Y, like all of these did, I change the Y to I and then add the letters ER or EST. Just like they did over here, ER, EST. They changed it to I first, then ER, and then EST. Okay, so let's just move on. This is a nice introduction for first graders to the comparative and superlative, I guess, rules for spelling. We're going to practice our sight words now. Okay, this one says near, stories. That I-E spells the E sound. Stories. We read lots of stories in first grade. Always. I always brush my teeth before I go to bed. Once. So, look at, that says one if I cover that C up. Once, like once upon a time. This word says different. Every child is different than the next child. Different. Or I have a lot of different kinds of clothes in my closet. Different. High. Like that mountaintop is high. Or the clouds are high up in the sky. That GH is silent. And by the way, IGH, what do you think IGH says? Whoops. IGH says I. No, Miss Gillum, it says ig. Ig. No. Have to tell you, IGH says I. Remember that the rest of your life. Hi. Okay, this word says enough. The GH spells the F sound, believe it or not. But no, Mrs. Gillum, over here on hi, the GH said nothing. I know, this is English. There's lots of exceptions. And these are sight words. They are rule breakers. So you just have to remember, this GH says nothing. It just says hi. And this GH says f, enough. Hi, enough. You're just going to have to practice, practice, practice. You can do it. Your brain can do hard things. You just got to practice. Oh, look, here's an adjective that ends with the Y. This says happy. Happy. And we're back to the beginning word, near. That EA spells E. Okay, let's go ahead and decide which of these sight words best answers this question. So, let's see, maybe I can raise this up a little bit so you can see it a little bit better while you're working. We're on page 168. So, what word goes with far? Near or high? Near does. It's opposite. Near and far are opposite, so they go together. What word goes with plot? So plot is like what happens in a story, like what happens at the beginning, middle, end, who are the characters, what are the problems, what's the solution. It goes with stories. Stories. This one says always. Plot doesn't go with always. What word goes with when? Okay, this one says different, and this one says once. It is once, like once upon a time tells when. And when a story begins with once upon a time, it happened a long time ago. What word goes with just right? Enough or near? Enough. So you can say, like, your mom's giving you mashed potatoes, and you can say, stop, that's just right. Or you can just say, stop, that's enough. So they go together. What word goes with low? High or happy? High does. High is an opposite word of low. What word goes with sad? Once or happy? Sad is the opposite of happy. What word goes with never? High or always? Always. Always and never are opposite words. What word goes with same? Different or stories? Well, you know, same and different are opposite words, so they would go together. So now we get to have some more practice with changing, or actually, what are we doing here? We're just reading, actually, over here. Remember when we studied how, well, let me move this out of the way. Let's just do another set of these adjectives that end with Y. So here's angry. And we changed the Y to I, and now it says angrier. Okay, now this says angriest. Here we have the word happy. That was one of our sight words, huh? We add an ER, but not until we change that Y to an I. Happier. Happiest. Looks like we're going to have to put this down a little bit. We'll do a row on top. This says jumpy, jumpier, and jumpiest. Okay, so there's your little review of what we're about to do on this page. We're going to actually read some words that have comparatives and superlatives. Okay, so let me stick this up, and we are on page 169. This is our last practice page for today. We're going to be adding ER and I, we're adding ER and EST, and we're going to be changing the Y to an I before we do it. So, let's see. Circle the word that best completes the sentence. Okay, my glue is sticky. My glue is stickier. Which one do you want to say? We can choose either. It's up for grabs. I think since they're wanting us to change the Y to an I and add either an ER or EST, I think we'll pick stickier. So this guy's, maybe somebody left their lid off. You do not have to write the word I just did, okay? You do not have to write it. Maybe someone left their lid off their glue and then the other kid next to them didn't. And so their glue is stickier and he's all bragging, my glue is stickier. Okay, we're just going to circle the words and not write them. That chick is the fluffy of all. That chick is the fluffiest of all. Fluffiest. When you're comparing one thing to two or more other things or a group of things, you get to use that EST. Fluffiest. That chick is the fluffiest of all. This cupcake is yummy. This cupcake is yummiest. Again, since we are practicing adding ER and EST to adjectives that end with Y, we're going to just choose yummiest. So this cupcake is yummiest. My hat, maybe they were comparing it to a whole bunch of different flavor cupcakes. My hat is the fancier of all. My hat is the fanciest of all. Fanciest, when you're comparing one thing to two or more other things, then we have to use a superlative suffix, which is est. Her bird makes the sillier sounds. Her bird makes the silliest sounds. Well, this one just doesn't sound right, so I'm going to pick silliest. Sometimes you just pick them based on how they sound. Luke tells funny jokes. Luke tells funnier jokes. Actually, like I said, it's a toss-up, but since they're wanting us to practice, anyways, adding ER, we're going to pick funnier. You could have picked funny here, and you could have picked sticky here, and I think there's one more like that. Oh, number 3, you could have picked yummy there. You would not have gotten them wrong. I would not have made them wrong. Okay, so boys and girls, that's it for today. Bye-bye.